Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic.
Everything.
It's probably wrong, but fun to talk about anyway.
Super fun.
I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are bringing you another deep dive.
Nope.
Semi-deep.
Yeah.
Because it's a smaller deck into the Red Deck Wins deck. Similar to our last video and podcast where we are going to tell you about a deck that is in standard rotation right now. Some of the cards that we might be losing. Well, we will be losing. That's not a might. It's a we will be losing out of that deck. And things to watch for to try to maybe
Replace
keep that
stuff.
deck alive.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully maybe a preview to the new set.
Maybe.
For one of Eldraine. Maybe there's a preview in this video.
Yeah, we've got some stuff.
Stay tuned.
Now, there will probably be releases of cards by the time this is up. So if we miss something, I'm sorry. We just can't keep up. Put it in the comments. We'd love to hear. In fact, there was 2 cards released today that would be really good for our Orzhov aggro video. So I put them in the comments of our Orzhov aggro video. If you haven't watched that one, I would definitely welcome you to do that. Today we're talking about Red Deck Wins.
Red Deck Wins.
Red Deck Wins. And Red Deck Wins has been around for a very long time. It will be around for a very long time. It's not going to die. There's no fear at all that Red Deck Wins will go away because there will always be mono red aggro. So
what is mono red aggro, Leslie?
What is mono? Well, basically mono red aggro is the love of my life.
Yes.
No. Basically, it's just a super aggressive deck that only plays red. Most of, if not all, the spells in this deck will be 3 mana converted mana cost or less. There are different versions of it. Some of them are hit you in the face or burn you. Some of them are really small creatures similar to the Orzhov aggro, and they just swing at you really fast. So goblins or elementals. The one that we're focusing on today is mainly, we'll have a couple cards that are in some of the other decks, but is mainly just the Red Deck Wins that hits you in the face or burns you. And so, yeah. So we have pulled some cards off of the top 8.
How many lands are typically in a Red Deck Wins, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So a typical 60-card deck has between 21 and 24 lands, 23, 24-ish. But in a mono-colored deck, regardless of what color it is, you can usually get away with 20, maybe 21. Most of the Red Deck Wins decks that are out there right now, because the highest mana cost you're paying is 3, are only about 20 land. Which is great because it gives you more room for burn you in the face, which I love. So we have some creatures. Just to give you an idea of what we're going to do, today we're going to break down the deck for you really quickly, talk to you about what's currently in it. Then we're going to look at what's leaving, what's staying, what we can look forward to. And then most of our video will be spent on just some things that you might consider for the future, some cards that are already out there that you might not be currently playing that you could possibly play in the meantime, or some things that we hope to see. So if you have comments or questions or anything at the end, we'd love to hear them as well. So why don't you start us off with some creatures? What's in this deck?
So the little Fanatical Firebrand for 1 red. He is in so many decks and he is so fun. He just comes in there right away with haste, and you can tap him and sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to any target. So it's pretty great. He gets in there and he's fighting right away.
Yeah, and Get 2 Lava Runner is the same as that. It's 1 mana cost. It's a 1/2 in this case, but it doesn't have haste. However, if you have enough instants and sorceries in your graveyard, then it gets +1, +0, and haste. So if you play it turn 3 or 4, then you can swing with it right away, and it's a 2/2 for 1, which is great.
Yes. Yeah. Very.
It'll be, We're talking about what's leaving later, but that one's going to be sad.
Very sad. Goblin Chainwhirler. I don't like this guy. I'd love to hate him.
Yeah,
I think
he's great for this deck, especially with what she plays.
He's a
Orzhov
strong Goblin Chainwhirler. He's been in and out of Red Deck Wins a few times. He's for 3 red, so it's very expensive that way. But he's a 3/3 with first strike, and when he comes into the battlefield, he deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. He does a heck of a lot of damage when he comes in.
Yeah, so if they're just doing, white weenies or Orzhov aggro or blue-white flyers, if they haven't gotten their stupid serif out yet, then basically he just wipes the board. So he's a board wipe.
Yep.
He does some damage to planeswalkers, and he's got first strike, which is wonderful.
He's an excellent guy for being in there.
I'm gonna be sad. So this is an interesting one, Rampaging Ferocidon. So this one has been banned in Standard for a while now.
It was really fun when he first came out.
He was really fun when he first came out. He's 3 mana cost, 3/3 with Menace, which is awesome to begin with. Players can't gain life, so that just took all the life gain decks out of the running. And then whenever a creature enters the battlefield, Rampaging Ferocidon deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. So basically, including yourself, every time you play a creature. In this deck, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to be playing as many creatures. There are definitely some creatures that we're talking about, but you're wanting to get those creatures out so you can burn them in the face. So it punishes them hopefully more than it punishes you. I'm not sure what the thought process was bringing this back. It was just recently unbanned for Standard because it's going to rotate out. And so they're giving it last 3 weeks of play. I'm not sure what you were thinking, Wizards.
He's kind of neat in the red dinosaur deck that they're playing with, that new red dinosaur, but I don't know. It's strange. I haven't tried it because I'm not spending wild cards.
Yeah, I'm not spending wild cards. I just don't know why it was brought back, but it wasn't being played in Red Deck Wins up until a couple weeks ago. We just threw it in here because it's being played now.
Yeah.
This one.
Runaway Steamkin. I hate this card. It's for 1 and a red, a 1/1, and whenever you cast a red spell, so creatures or sorceries or instances, whatever, if he has fewer than 3 +1 counters on it, put a 1/1 counter on him, and then you remove 3 1/1 counters from Runaway Steamkin and add 3 mana. So this card causes a lot of problems for me, but it's great in a red deck that needs mana.
It was made for Red Deck Wins.
Yeah, it's just so aggressive. It lets
super
you
aggressive.
play cards.
Play. And you can swing in with your big creature and then use the mana.
Then use the mana after. Yep.
Vishu Pyromancer. So we are assuming a little bit that you either haven't played Red Deck Wins or you're just curious about the deck and how it works. So that's why we're explaining this. But Vishu Pyromancer is a 2 mana cost, 1 in a red wizard for 2/1, and when it enters the battlefield, it just does 2 damage to target player or planeswalker. So there's some versatility there. So not only do you get a creature that is an aggressive creature, because remember, aggressive creatures usually have a higher power than a toughness, so you can just swing with them. In this case, you probably won't as much, but it does 2 damage right off the bat, which is equivalent to a shock.
Yeah.
So
exactly, 2 cards for 1.
Shocking.
So 3 more cards that aren't in all Red Deck Wins, but certainly some that we've seen fairly regularly, and both the next 2 cards are mostly for decks that have lots of instances and sorcery. So Electrostatic Field is a 0/4 defender for 1 and a red, and it is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So he's got protecting you and hitting the guy extra in the face at the same time.
Yeah, Guttersnipe does the same thing. He rewards you for playing those instants and sorceries that burn people in the face. I actually really like this version of Red Deck Wins because I do like to play the instants and sorcery version of it. Yeah. So even if you're using your instants and sorceries to kill their creatures, you're doing some damage to them at the same time. Yep. If you really want to get the damage in, you just go straight for their face, and it goes above and beyond all of their creatures. So I really like those 2 in there.
How did you? Ember Hauler is a new card out of M20, and it's a 2/2 for 2 red, and he's a little goblin that you can pay 1 and sacrifice it and deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So just starting to see it a lot more in Red Deck Wins online, and it's just a great little. I need to do 2 more damage really quickly. I'm gonna do this guy.
Yeah,
use this guy.
So then we get into our instants and sorceries, which is what this deck is mainly made of. Again, a lot of these, we're not just saying this is the only deck that's out there. We've kind of picked cards that are in various versions of. So Light Up the Stage is one of those. It's 2 and a red for a sorcery, but it has a spectacle cost, which basically means if you've done damage to the player that turn, you can cast it for cheaper. If you're playing correctly with this deck, you will cast this for 1 mana cost all the time.
All the time.
So its converted mana cost ultimately is 1. If you happen to have to, you can pay it for 3. Exile the top 2 cards of your library until your next turn, then you can play those cards. You still have to cast them, but essentially it gives you another 2 cards in your hand, which is
Red deck needs it.
It's card draw.
Yep.
Yeah.
And good old lightning strike for 1 and a red. It deals 3 damage to any target. Instant speed.
This will be interesting while we're talking about this and predictions and all that kind of stuff. So Rowan's abilities, her magic is lightning.
Rowan, who's Rowan?
Rowan is the new planeswalker.
Ah.
She's from Battle Bond. So Rowan, her stuff is lightning. So we may get lightning strike back, or we may get a different version of lightning that is Rowan's blast or something. Anyways, I think that this isn't going to go away all the way, but anyway, then we got shock as well, which is right on that same theme. 1 mana cost, 2 damage, any target.
Works. Wizard's Lightning is for 2 and a red, and it is an instant, and it costs 2 less. Is it 2 less? Yeah, 2 less if you control a wizard. So that's where you need those the Viashino Pyromancer or the Gitu Lava Runner. And it deals 3 damage to any target. So it's a lightning strike for cheap.
Essentially, you're casting it for 1, hopefully, if you're doing it right. Same with Skewer the Critics. It can cost 3, but it should cost 1. It's got a spectacle cost of 1. And it does 3 damage to any target. And what you'll notice about the last 3 spells that we've talked about, Lightning Strike, Shock, Wizard's Lightning, and Skewer the Critics, is that they're damage to any target. It's really important in your red deck wins if you're building it, and what to watch for is to make sure that you have stuff that will do damage to any target. Because if it's just creatures, then you can't, it just takes away all your versatility, and you're stuck with the next card, for example, in your hand that you can't do anything with.
Yep.
What's the next card?
Lava Coil for 1 and a red, and it's a sorcery that deals 4 damage to target creature, and if that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So it's a way to get rid of those ones that keep coming back.
Well, and this is a nice one that I think most people are putting in their sideboard.
Yeah,
they're not playing in their main board because they don't know if they need creature removal that badly. And sometimes you can kill them without removing creatures, but sometimes you just need to get some creature removal in there. So then we have some other cards that are really neat and I would say in some ways essential. Chandra, Fire Artesian, doing lots of work right now. It's the highest mana cost thing, one of the highest mana cost things in this deck for 4, 2 and 2 red. Whenever 1 or more loyalty counters are removed from Chandra, Fire Artesian, it deals that much damage to target opponent or planeswalker. So you can choose target opponent or planeswalker. So you have some versatility there. Basically, every time she takes damage, you're doing damage to them. It's her +1 ability is exile the top card. She comes in with 4. +1 ability is exile the top card of your library. You may play it that turn. Usually the first time you put her out, you do her +1 just to get another +1 in there. You end up kind of losing that card. Hopefully it's a land. And then her -7 is exile the top 7 cards of the library, and then you may play them this turn. Again, you still have to pay for them, but you're removing 7 loyalty counters, doing 7 damage, and getting 7 cards in your hand to play. You will probably not have any cards in your hand by this time and have all this mana that's sitting there waiting to be played. So if you can get her to her -7, she does a ton of work for you. So she's a great addition to this.
One thing that I always forget to do with Chandra is I have 4 mana out to pay for her, and I have a mana in my hand.
Forget to put the mana out first.
I always put the mana out first, and then I play her, and then I get a card, and it's a mana. It's like, I shouldn't have played that mana.
If I hadn't played that land, that's
so
actually
that's just
a really good
strategy. Tip. And I've done it with the cards that explore as well. I play the mana first. You don't want to give someone that information, right? You want to pretend you don't have a land and play that land that you dig up.
You can still play it after the fact because you can play her card at any time that turn. So, that's a great tip.
It's something that I finally learned to do, and it's really powerful. Anyway, Experimental Frenzy. I don't like him very much. It's an enchantment that for 3 and a red, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. You can't play cards from your hand. And you can pay 3 and a red to destroy Experimental Frenzy. So this causes that red deck player to be able to play all those cards at the top of their deck and just keep playing cards until they don't have mana to spend. So they have it and the little guy that does 3 mana. They've got tons of mana all of a sudden, and they're burning you.
And this one is tricky because it can do you terribly wrong. That's why it's called Experimental Frenzy. Sometimes that experiment doesn't work.
Goes very wrong.
But it's fun. And it's all about having fun doing it.
That's right. That's right.
So Flame of Keld is not in every red deck wins. It definitely only sees play some of the time. But it is a really good card draw if you do decide to play with it. It's for 2. It's one of those saga cards, and so it probably will, it will be rotating out. But when you play it, you're going to do the first part of the saga, which is discard your hand. If you play it at the right time, it'll be the last card in your hand you play, and then you discard nothing because you don't have anything in your hand anyway. The next turn, you're going to draw 2 cards, so you'll have 3 cards in your hand, the one you draw for your first beginning phase, and then drawing 2 cards. And then your next turn, you're going to hold on to those cards, especially if they're burned in their face, because in your next turn, basically, if a red source that you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals that much damage +2 to that permanent or player. So your lightning bolt
+1, +2. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. So you do a shock for 4, you do a lightning strike for 5, you do a lava coil for 6. If you need to get rid of that big beefy thing, really great for finishing them off. That's a card that I call the finisher.
Indeed it is.
It finishes. So
right,
really quick, what's leaving? What's leaving for creatures? We have Fanatical Firebrand, Get-You Lava Runner, Goblin Chain Whirler, Rampaging Ferocidon, and Vishu Pyromancer. They're all going bye-bye on the other side of the table there. What about instants and sorceries?
Lightning Strike, Wizard's Lightning, and Flame of Keld.
So not as many instants and sorceries are leaving. And then none of our other cards are leaving. Well, Flame of Keld, I guess.
Yes.
Technically an other
Flame
card.
of Keld, yeah.
So yeah, those are what's leaving. What are we left with? Why don't you do the
We are
creatures?
left with the Runaway Steamkin, Amber Hauler, and the Electrostatic Field.
So those are great those are good ones to be left with. I'm happy with that. And then we're actually left with quite a few of our instants and sorceries. We still get Light Up the Stage. We still get Lava Coil. We still get Shock. We still get Skewer the Critics, which is a great card I love. And then we also keep Chandra's Fire Artesian and Experimental Frenzy for our other cards. So that's a really good kind of base to go with. And you could just decide, you know what, I'm not going to add anything else. I'm just going to play with those cards and go with it. But I think we have some options for you.
We do.
Let's start. Let's start the good stuff. Let's dig deep now. Deep. What to watch for? Some of these are already being played.
Yeah. I like the little common that I really like this little guy, Scorch Spitter for a 1/1 for 1, and whenever he attacks, it deals 1 damage to player or planeswalker it's attacking. So even if he gets blocked and killed, you've still done the damage.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. It's so aggressive. So fun.
And then Chandra's Pyrohelix, which is an instant for 1 and a red, and it does 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 targets. So you can decide to do 2, you can decide to do 1 and 1, you can target a player and a creature or both. Great for those spells that trigger if you do damage to that player, which we have some.
Yes. Cavalcade of Calamity. So this card is seeing a lot more play, especially in those red decks that have a lot of creatures with a 1 power, because this is an enchantment for 1 and a red, and whenever a creature you control with power 1 or less attacks, or less, so it could be the 0/4 as well, Cavalcade of Calamity deals 1 damage to the player or planeswalker that creature is attacking.
Mm-hmm.
So this just adds up so quickly with some of those, like the little Scorch Spitters and those kinds of cards. It's crazy.
Pairs really well with this next card, which is Chandra Spitfire. So that paired with Scorch Spitter. Basically, Chandra Spitfire, she's a flyer. It costs 2 and a red, and it's a 1/3. But whenever an opponent is dealt non-combat damage, Chandra Spitfire gets +3 until the end of turn. So even if you only had Cavalcade for Calamity and a Scorch Spitter and Chandra Spitfire on the field, you're going to swing with 2. They both trigger Cavalcade for Calamity twice. So one each. So that's +3 twice. And then Scorch Spitter does a damage before everything swings in. So now you've got that triggering 3 times. Now you have a 10/3 swinging in. That's just 3 things on the battlefield. So basically what we're saying a little bit with what we're suggesting right now is that Red Deck Wins has been right now moving more towards small creature aggression rather than burn you in the face aggression, just because what's in there in the format. Who knows what's coming with Eldraine, but we'll see what happens. If you want to kind of keep using Red Deck Wins, though, you're probably going to want to use more creature aggression.
Yeah.
So
another card that we've seen a few times and in various different ways is Risk Factor. And it might come to the forefront a little bit more. So it is for 2 and a red and an instant. And target opponent may have Risk Factor deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, you draw 3 cards. So it's really helpful with your card draw. And it has Jumpstart, so you get to do that twice.
A lot of times you have a land. I think this is a super underrated card. People are not playing with it in top 8. It's not making top 8 decks.
Yeah.
But I love this card. It does so much work for me when I play with it because you're making them choose. They either take 4 damage or you get to draw 3 cards. Either way, that's good for you for 3 mana, and you get to do it twice. You get rid of that land in your hand, draw 3 cards, you do 4 damage.
And it's instant speed. Like, they don't even see it coming. All of a sudden, they're thinking
played
they're doing okay. They're down to 6, and all of a sudden, they only have 6 life, but they're feeling pretty aggressive, and they're feeling okay. You play that on their turn, and suddenly they're, oh gosh, do I lose 4 life, or do I let him have a whole bunch of cards before his turn?
Yeah.
It's not good.
Neither choice is good.
No.
So, and then we have Heartfire, which is...
Yeah, so I was thinking about this card.
Yeah, so 2 and a red. It's an instant. As an additional cast to cost the spell, sacrifice a creature or planeswalker.
1 in red.
Yeah, sorry, 1 in red. And then Heartfire deals 4 damage to any target. Another great any target spell. You have to sacrifice a creature, but if you've moved towards that more creature-based deck, you have creatures to sacrifice, especially if you're playing goblins. It doesn't matter. That's what goblins are for. They're to sacrifice. So yeah, that's a great card. Great option.
Yeah. And Legion Warboss, again, because here we are with those goblins and things, the little guys. So he is a 2 and a red, a 2/2 boss, and he has Mentor. So that means whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on a target attacking creature with less power. And as he's attacking, he is making a new guy. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attacks this combat if able.
He doesn't even have to attack to
No, he doesn't have to attack to make them. They're always made. So you're always getting those sacrificial little goblins to do what you need to.
And I mean, hopefully they don't have anything on the battlefield yet, so you can get a couple built up and then you keep mentoring. Doesn't always go off that way, but that 1 mana, if you have Cavalcade for Calamity, that one guy that's swinging in does 1 damage and automatically, even if it's blocked.
I'm going to do Tibalt, and you're going to do the other one.
Sure.
Okay. So Tibalt, Rakish Instigator. I was thinking about him this morning a little bit, and with so many decks going with this life gain and stuff, I'm seeing him more and more, especially in a sideboard situation. But for 2 and a red, he is a legendary planeswalker, and your opponents can't gain life. And that he comes in with a 5, and he only has a -2 ability where you get to create a 1/1 red devil token with when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So especially in your sideboard against some of those life gain decks that are starting to gain some traction, like the one we talked about last video.
And with the new food tokens.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, again, I was thinking about this because we were thinking about food this morning.
That actually,
Last night,
makes me think that maybe Tybalt is going to go up in value
That's
because there's
what I was
so many
wondering.
food tokens, and that's 3 life.
The life gain is just happening.
It's
again.
not just 1, it's 3 per time for these stupid food tokens. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Which brings me to Throne of Eldraine. Da, 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 da. So the last couple days, we've seen some Throne of Eldraine stuff finally is trickling out. It's actually sooner than I thought it would be, so that's awesome. I'm not sure if there's anything more by the time this video comes up. Like we said, please share if you found some stuff. But we did find, I found today Slaying Fire for 2 and a red. It's an instant. And Slaying Fire deals 3 damage to any target. And it has a really cool ability called Adamant. If at least 3 red mana was spent to cast the spell, it deals 4 damage instead. So Adamant is ultimately about you. So Eldraine, the Throne of Eldraine, is composed of 5 courts, and those courts are all coincide with the colors of the magic wheel. They have things like courage and passion and knowledge behind them. Of course, I think blue is probably knowledge, and I think courage or
probably white,
fierceness or whatever it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, but is red. At any rate, so if you have more dedication or you're adamant that you're from that court, then you will obviously use 3 mana to cast the spell, or 3 red mana to cast the spell instead of red and 2 random colors. So either way, it gets you 3 damage to any target, but if you are dedicated Red Deck Wins player, then you will be able to cast this and do 4 damage to any target, which is great for burning him in the face. It is better than Lava Coil because it's not just target based. It still does that 4 damage, or you still get the 3 in if you don't happen to have 3 red, but you're going to have 3 red because you're playing Red Deck Wins. So there's nothing wrong. This is an amazing really Red Deck Win cards. So I'm excited about it.
I hadn't seen it until Leslie showed it to me today.
Just came out just today. So
awesome.
We are super excited. Thank you so much for sticking with us this long. We hope that you learned some stuff about Red Deck Wins, and if you have a deck, we would love to hear what you have to say. Please like and share and all the things on all the social media. Come and say hi. We love to talk to you. And I guess in the meantime, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. See you later, guys. Bye.